to the January 6th rally, essentially, if she believes that the president is asking for these people to come. And so that's exactly what ends up happening. Keep in mind, she is part of a broader conspiracy that prosecutors say organized even training camps before they travel to Washington. They talked about having tactical gear. They had tactical gear as they tried to lead the crowd in reaching those police lines at the Capitol that day. And again, this is the most developed conspiracy charge that we've seen so far. We expect a lot more from some of the charges that are still coming.
Wow, but amazing that she's literally sitting there waiting, waiting and listening. All right, thank you very much. And thanks, as always, to all of you. We'll see you here tomorrow. ACP 60 starts now.
The House Impeachment Managers have now concluded the case for why the former President of the United States would never be allowed to even contemplate another run for that office. Presenting a case that was as much about arguing his guilt before 100 U.S. senators as it was defining his legacy before the American public. Tomorrow, his legal team will have their turn to rebut the House Manager's case. However, those arguments to senators appear to have already begun, at least behind closed doors. Hours ago, three of the former president's most reliable members in the Senate, Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, Mike Lee, met privately with the former president's attorneys on Capitol Hill. Senator Cruz told CNN this about the private meeting, quote, "We were discussing their strategy for tomorrow and discussing their thoughts on where it should go." Again, these three men are jurors in a trial. So, ethics aside, it's pretty much an indication that the fix is likely in. And the Democrats seem to know that. Today they also issued a warning that this could happen again. A warning for the future of this country and a clear message about what will be the legacy of the former president. The editorial page of conservative Wall Street Journal today picked up on it this evening with a piece titled, "The Trump Impeachment Evidence, He Might Be Acquitted, but He Won't Live Down His Disgraceful Conduct." And this is the final paragraph. It reads, "Now his legacy will be forever stained by this violence and by his betrayal of his supporters and refusing to tell them the truth. Whatever the result, the Republican trial Republicans should remember the betrayal as the Trump decides to run again in 2024. Again, the Wall Street Journal says these Republican senators and all others in the party should, quote, remember the betrayal. Time, of course, will tell if they will or if their constituents will force them to. More now in the day from our congressional correspondent, Ryan Nobles.
He attacked the First Amendment, he attacked the Constitution, he betrayed his oath of office. Presidents don't have any right to do that. It's forbidden.
The Democratic House impeachment managers have wrapped their case with hours of time available, hoping a shorter presentation will have a greater impact.
All of my wonderful supporters.
On day 3, they tied Trump to the mob by showing that those who stormed the Capitol did so because they believed the president had sent them there.
You don't have to take my word for it that the insurrectionists acted at Donald Trump's direction. They said so.
The manager showed several examples of rioters shouting Trump's name and proclaiming they were doing his bidding.
Does he not realize President Trump called us to see to play?
Was following the president. I thought I was following what we were called to do.
We're fighting for Trump.
They then showed how Trump offered his support for the mob and demonstrated no remorse for the role he played in inciting their anger.
My speech and my words and my final paragraph, my final sentence, and everybody to the T thought it was totally appropriate.
We know President Trump didn't make a mistake. Because you see, when you or I make a mistake and something very bad happens, we would show remorse. We would accept responsibility. President Trump didn't do any of that. Why not? Because he intended what happened on January 6th. And how do we know that? He told us.
Trump's legal team used their opportunity to rebut the Democratic arguments tomorrow, but they attempted to get a head start today. Their lead lawyer, David Schoen, left the chamber while the trial was underway to go on Fox News. He promised their presentation will show no link between Trump and the actions of January 6th.
I think you'll at least be moved by what you see and get a much better picture of exactly what's going on here and the hypocrisy in some of the positions taken by the House managers in this case.
But Democrats believe they've provided overwhelming evidence of Trump's connection to the crime and warned that it was incumbent upon jurors to hold him accountable because of what might happen in the future.
I'm not afraid of Donald Trump running again in 4 years. I'm afraid he's going to run again and lose. Because he can do this again.
And Ryan Nobles joins us now. So there's also new reporting, Ryan, on the timeline of the trial over the next few days. What are you saying?
Yeah, so it looks like this could wrap up much quicker than we earlier anticipated. The Trump legal team saying today that they intend to only use 3 to 4 hours of the 16 hours they have available to them to make their case. That means that theoretically tomorrow they could move quickly to the question and answer period. Now, if everything goes according to plan, that means this could all be wrapped up by Saturday. Now, there are a lot of caveats to that. We still don't know whether or not witnesses are going to be called. We don't know if both sides intend to use the full time allotted to them when it comes to questions and answers. But it seems pretty clear that both Democrats and Republicans are ready to get this trial in the rearview mirror. And Anderson, based on what Republican senators told us today after they left the chamber, it still seems pretty clear that President Trump will be acquitted.
I Nobles, appreciate it. Respect it now. And what we see in this trial, one Senator Smokey of Connecticut joins us now. Senator, I first just want to get your reaction to the case that the House managers laid out over the past 2 days.
Well, it's a remarkable case. It's a case that is full of loads of impeachable conduct. And I think you can make the case that even if January 6th had not happened, and the president had violated his oath of office repeatedly simply through his attempts to try to bully state officials into overturning the election. And then I think the impeachment managers did a good job of showing how January 6th was entirely a construction of Donald Trump. It wasn't some rally that he just showed up to speak at. He, in fact, was the primary organizer of it. And at that rally, he had all sorts of information to know that this was a very dangerous, very violent crowd. Even with that knowledge, he equipped them with the information. He incited them to violence that led, I think, very knowingly, very predictably to the attack that left many, many people dead and injured. I think today, their focus was on making it very clear that the crowd believed they were acting at the direction of President Trump, but then also making it equally clear how dire the politics of the United States. These right-wing groups claim that they have had boons in recruitment since January 6th. They are still planning more attacks on the United States. And they also showed how our image and reputation abroad has suffered, that America is not secure today on the 6th. It's a really compelling case. I hope there are at least a handful of Republicans who are moved by it. We'll see this weekend.
I was struck by a video that you posted on Twitter talking about a conversation you had with a freshman senator after today's proceedings. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think you have to understand that these are videos that we're watching showing our lives in danger, right? We watched yesterday for the first time security footage of all of us being rushed out of the Senate chamber. We saw for the first time how close we were to rioters who we now know were intent on killing us. Who knows how it would have turned out, but I think we have enough evidence to understand that there were a lot of lives in danger that day. And so for, 100 people and hundreds of staff living that inside the chamber, it's a little different than the standard trial before a jury. It's certainly very different than the Ukraine trial a year ago. And as I walked out with a freshman senator remarking to me, these are tough things to watch, tough things to process, especially if you just showed up to the Senate 30 days ago.
It was pointed out today the president's responses and lack of responses to what happened the day it happened. And one of the videos that he made is, he said this is what happens when, in his opinion, an election is stolen or people aren't listened to. But that phrase, this is what happens, it is very telling, and it sort of has a double meaning that was pointed out today, which is he knew what would happen if you lie to people and get them riled up, and you've seen them attack the Michigan State House, and then you get them to come to Washington, and then you tell them to go to Congress itself, and that you're going to march with them and fight like hell. This is what happens, and any reasonable person would know that. And the president was indicating the day of the attack, he knew it, that he knew this is what happens, because this is what happens when you do this.
Well, that tweet that he sends out at 6 o'clock on the day of the insurrection, that I think he erased some hours later, is essentially an admission of guilt. Because as you point out, he is basically telling everyone in that tweet that he knew that violence was going to occur, that everyone should have known. And then at the back end of that tweet, he is, of course, celebrating the violence, applauding all of the individuals who stormed the Capitol and the deaths of multiple individuals. And so more than probably any other piece of evidence, that tweet gives you a very clear window into the president's frame of mind